Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is the EOS M200, Canon's latest entry-level mirrorless camera. It's aimed at photographers or vloggers looking for a step up in flexibility and quality over a smartphone, with a 24-megapixel APS-C sensor, confident movie autofocus, at least in 1080 quality, a tilting touchscreen, easy-to-use guided menus, and the chance to swap lenses to enhance your creativity. Successor to the 2-year-old EOS M100, is the smallest, cheapest and most beginner-friendly model in the current Canon mirrorless lineup, and costs around £500 or $550 in a kit with the basic 15 to 45mm zoom lens. It's a subtle update over the earlier M100, with the biggest difference being Canon's latest Digicate processor, and that brings finer AF points, eye detection and 4K video, albeit with some restrictions I'll come to in a minute. Externally, the M200 is essentially identical to its predecessor, with the same top panel featuring a pop-up flash, shutter release with a nice clicky finger dial, and a single mode dial with a power button in the middle and just 3 shooting positions. The first mode is fully automatic, using scene detection indicated in the top left corner. There's also touch controls for the drive mode, image quality and touch shutter in the bottom left. But what makes this mode more than just plain automatic though are the creative assist options. Tap the colourful icon in the lower right corner and the M200 will guide you through a wealth of adjustments to the picture style, background blur, brightness, contrast, colour tone and monochrome options, all with intuitive sliders or icons to tap away. It's a fun and easy interface designed to feel very familiar to anyone who uses phone camera apps, and it lets beginners make the most of the camera's functions. I particularly enjoyed the monochrome options with the various colour tones. This creative assistance was, however, also available on the earlier M100. The second mode unlocks full exposure control with access to the traditional program, aperture, shutter priority and manual modes, letting you choose the aperture, shutter and ISO sensitivity settings. This mode also gives you access to a bunch of scene presets, along with the miniature and HDR modes, and also the silent mode, which uses an electronic shutter to shoot in genuine silence, albeit with some risk of skewing if your subject or the camera are in motion. The third mode is dedicated to movies and lets you choose from fully automatic or manual, the latter again allowing you to select the shutter, aperture and ISO values yourself for full control if desired. Eagle-eyed Canon fans will also notice the Wi-Fi button on the previous M100 now becomes a dedicated movie record button on the M200, although Canon's also added a touch record button on the screen too, which is actually very convenient when filming with the screen flipped up to face you. After all, when the screen is facing you and you're fumbling around the back, you could press the menu or the play button by accident. The 2 record buttons are the only control differences with the earlier M100. There's no viewfinder at this price point on an entry-level mirrorless camera, so composition is with the 3-inch touchscreen only, which like the M100 can angle up by 180 degrees for selfies and vlogging. In the absence of a hot shoe for mounting any accessories, there's nothing to block the screen in this position, and I found that I could easily vlog with it. You can also compose comfortably at low positions, although the screen won't angle downwards for easier shooting over the heads of crowds. On the left hand side you'll find a switch to pop up the built-in flash, and if you like you can angle the flash head back by hand for an improvised bounce effect. Below this is a small flap for the M200's only ports, micro HDMI and micro USB. Sadly, like the M100 before it, the M200 is not chargeable over USB, so you'll need to use the supplied AC charger, and there's no microphone input either. If you do want a mic input you'll need to go for a model like the M50. And finally, the memory card slot is actually housed behind a door at the bottom, although you may need to angle the screen out a little to access it more comfortably. The battery alone is housed in a compartment under the camera and is good for around 300 shots. In terms of video, Canon quotes 90 minutes worth per charge, but I actually managed 5 consecutive half-hour clips of 1080 video, or 2.5 hours worth, before the battery icon started flashing and expired a few minutes later. I did however find that icon can go from half full to flashing to completely dead in quite a short period of time, so keep an eye open for that. Like the M100 before it, the M200 sensor sports Canon's dual pixel autofocus for stills and 1080 video, both of which are now available with eye detection, although to be fair I didn't really have many complaints with the normal face detection on the older model. You can see the M200's face and eye detection in action here, although in this particular example it struggled a bit to keep me in focus all the time, perhaps due to the lower lighting conditions. You can also see the burst shooting, which, with continuous autofocus, fires at around 4 frames per second, although again, in this situation, it stalled quite frequently as it tried to keep me in focus as I moved back and forth. To be fair, in other situations I could maintain 4 frames per second for much longer bursts while focusing, but this still doesn't make it an action camera. Switch the focus to single and the burst speed increases to 6 frames per second. I used it here to capture the waves crashing around Brighton Pier on a stormy day. The burst speeds are the same as the M100 whether you're using focusing or not. Moving on to movies, when the video system is set to PAL you can record 720 at 50p, 1080 at 25 or 50p, or 4K in 25p only. Set the video system to NTSC and you can record 720 at 60p, 1080 at 30 or 60p, or 4K in 24p. Yes, 24p on a new Canon camera when it's missing on so many others, but don't be fooled as this is more down to inheriting the video features from the earlier M50 rather than a change of strategy. That said, as I filmed this video, Canon did announce that they were doing a firmware update that would equip its 2019 EOS, mirrorless and power shots with 24p. Yay! Moving on, the maximum clip length in any mode is a second shy of half an hour, and again I managed just over 2.5 hours of 1080 video on a single charge. There's also a time-lapse movie option, and in 4K if you like. Here's some footage filmed in 1080 25p on a stormy day, so please forgive any wobbling as it really was very windy. Now I've switched to 4K at 25p. Spot the difference in quality? Although you probably will spot the difference in the field of view. When you film in 4K, the M200 applies a fairly substantial crop. That's great for longer shots, but less convenient for wider ones. Now it's exactly the same as the M50 in this and a few other regards. Here I've adjusted the lens to match the field of view for 4K on the top half and 1080 in the bottom half, and there's definitely a boost in detail in the 4K version. But there's more than just a crop to deal with when filming 4K on the M200. Here's the M200 filming in 1080p again to demonstrate the superb dual pixel autofocus in action, where the camera effortlessly focuses wherever I tap on the screen with no overshooting or hunting. Canon's dual pixel movie autofocus is one of the best in the business, but on the M200, like the M50, it's not available when filming in 4K. So here's the same subject from the same distance with the same lens, showing not just the crop, but also the less confident autofocusing. In 4K, the M200 uses a contrast-based system that will get there, but is often slower and it can't help but hunt back and forth a little as it does so. Here's another example which I filmed handheld with the M200 in 1080p, so you're getting the full benefit of dual pixel autofocus, easily adjusting as I move closer to or further away from the guitars and amps. And now the same scene filmed in 4K where I've stepped back to accommodate the crop, but where you can still see the less confident autofocus system again struggle at times to keep up. Now your mileage may vary, but the combination of the crop and less confident autofocus means 4K on the M200, like the M50 before it, is much less useful than the 1080p modes. So much so you may actually rarely use it. In better news though, the face detection works well while filming, and while the low light here with the fairly dim kit zoom means it's not quite as confident as in brighter conditions, the camera still keeps me focused for most of the time as I move around the frame. This makes the camera ideal for vlogging, as I'll now show. Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is a quick vlogging test with the Canon EOS M200, currently the most affordable mirrorless camera in Canon's current lineup. It replaces the M100, it's a fairly subtle upgrade. I've gone over what those differences are already, so let's have a look at what this camera can do if you're into vlogging. So I'm filming this in 1080 at 25p, you can also film at 50p, and there's 4K, but I'm going to show you why you may not want to use that in just a moment. In another upgrade over the M100, you have eye detection, but it already had decent face detection, so that's not a massive benefit, but I'm using it now, and the combination of decent face and eye detection, coupled with Canon's APS-C sensor with dual pixel CMOS AF. Well, there's a lot of technical jargon there, but the bottom line is this camera can really lock on, follow your face and your eyes, and make sure you're in focus wherever you are on the frame. Speaking of the framing, I'm using the 15 to 45mm kit zoom here at 15mm f3.5, and I'm holding it one-handed, and at arm's length this really is a slightly wider than average lens. It's really handy for more kind of environmental vlogging environments, so you can see what's around you. There's optical stabilization in the lens, but also optional digital stabilization. There's two settings, normal and enhanced. Now normal is the default setting, so that's what I'm using here. I have tried the enhanced setting. I didn't actually feel that it actually enhanced the stabilization much if you're walking with the camera, but it's there if you're doing more static compositions. It does crop that field of view a bit. The only other thing to mention is in a new feature over the M100, there's now a touch record button in the corner of the screen. That sounds like a really insignificant upgrade, but it's actually really handy. It was on the G7X Mark III, and it means that when the screen is facing you, when you are vlogging, you can just see the record button. You don't have to fumble around the back trying to find it, because if you're anything like me, you'll be pressing the menu button, or you'll be locking the focus, or you'll be pressing buttons that you don't want to press. So that's actually quite a handy upgrade. There isn't, however, a microphone input, so I'm recording this with the built-in microphones. Oh, and just like the M100, the screen does flip up over the back to face you, so you can see exactly what's going on. And of course, without a hot shoe or a mic input, you don't have to worry about anything blocking you. Now, the really big new feature for video, as you know already, is the presence of 4K. So I'm going to show you that now, and also show you why you probably aren't going to be using it for vlogging. Okay, I've switched to 4K, and did you notice the difference? I'm not holding the camera any closer to me, so you can see how much of a crop the 4K mode incurs. It's because the M200 inherits really the 4K capabilities of the earlier M50, which means you get severely cropped 4K, but you also lose dual pixel autofocus when you're filming in this mode, which means if I was to move closer or further away, the camera is not going to do as good a job at keeping me in focus. You do, however, get it at 25 and 24p. 24p is available for 4K only if you switch the video system to NTSC, and again, that's because it's inheriting basically the features of an older camera. It's not a new policy of Canon to bring 24p back. It's basically because it's inheriting an older feature set. So you get 1080 in 25, 30, 50 or 60p, or you get 4K in 24 or 25p, and this is 4K at 25p here. So did you notice any difference in quality? Would you film in 4K? You'd need a wider lens, wouldn't you? And with that, I've vlogged enough, so it's on with the rest of the review. The M200 also offers high-speed video, which films 720p at 100 or 120 frames per second. That's then automatically slowed by 4 times during playback. Like Canon's other cameras, there is no autofocus or sound when recording high-speed video. You can see a few examples of it here, and it's a new feature over the earlier M100. I'm glad Canon's included it on the M200, although with only 720p resolution, it's not as detailed as the 1080 slow motion modes of many rivals. Before moving on, the M200 also now remembers the orientation of video, so if you're filming in the vertical portrait shape for Instagram stories or IGTV, it stays in this shape when you copy it onto your phone. Speaking of copying images and video onto your phone, the M200 is equipped with excellent Wi-Fi and Bluetooth facilities, which provide easy wireless access, control and image transfer. Bluetooth can also be used for basic remote control and location tagging via your phone, but again, all of this was possible on the M100. Like the M100 and M50 before it, the M200 employs a 24 megapixel APS-C sensor, which captures images with 6000 by 4000 pixels. That's enough to make a 20 by 13 inch print at 300 dpi or have plenty of latitude for cropping. While many phones approach or even exceed this resolution, the considerably larger APS-C sensor here allows it to deliver much cleaner images in low light, as well as hold on to tonal detail in bright or dark areas. Like all of Canon's mirrorless cameras to date though, there's no built-in stabilisation, so to iron out any wobbles, you'll need a lens with optical stabilisation, or IS in Canon's range. Here's a selection of images taken with the EFM 15-45mm kit zoom on the M200. This is a tiny lightweight lens that also folds down to make for a very compact package, while also providing a useful general purpose range. Now, it's not the sharpest tool in the box, especially when you're focused close, but it's still a great starter lens that will cover you for wide views and tighter compositions. Meanwhile, Canon's image processing does a great job at delivering natural looking tones and colours. These are all JPEGs out of camera with the default settings. If you'd like to take a closer look at any of these images, go to my review at cameralabs.com and you can download the original files. One of the key benefits of the M200 over a phone is being able to fit different lenses, and along with a handful of native EFM lenses, the M200 can accommodate any EF or EFS DSLR lens via the optional EF to EFM adapter, which costs about $150. For your second lens, how about the EF 50mm f1.8 STM for about £125 or dollars, which gathers over 3 times more light than the 15-45mm zoom does at its long end, not only making it much better in dim conditions, but also allowing greater chance of blurring in the background. To illustrate this, here's a shot I took with the M200 fitted with the 15-45mm zoom at 45mm, and now for the same subject with the EF 50mm f1.8. Here's the can of beer again, this time with the 15-45mm at 45mm, and now again with the 50mm f1.8, and just look at the difference in the background. It's perfect for portraits too. Here's another example again with the 15-45 at 45, before now switching to the 50mm f1.8. It's a big difference, isn't it? The M200 will also focus the f50mm f1.8 STM well for video, well at least 1080 video anyway. Here's that beer can example again, which has a considerably shallower depth of field than the earlier version with the 15-45. And now here's another example again with the coffee cup going in and out of focus. Right, that's enough fun, now for my final verdict. The EOS M200 becomes Canon's smallest, lightest, cheapest and most beginner-friendly mirrorless camera in the current range. It packs a 24-megapixel APS-C sensor, good quality 1080p video with great autofocus, tilting touchscreen, and 6 frames per second bursts in a compact body with an easy-to-use creative assist mode when you need guidance, and full exposure control when you're ready to grow. It's ideal for the photographer or vlogger who wants more quality and creative control than a phone without breaking the bank, and with the optional EF adapter you also have access to one of the largest collections of lenses around, including a wealth of third-party and second-hand options. So far so good, but the earlier EOS M100 can also do all of this for around $100 less. The M200 responds with its newer Digicate processor, which adds finer AF areas, eye detection, support for vertical video, a considerate on-screen record button, and 4K movies, albeit with some restrictions. Like the M50 before it, 4K on the M200 incurs a substantial crop, and more importantly loses dual pixel autofocus, instead relying on a slower and less confident autofocus system. Indeed, like the M50, I'd say it's best to think of the M200 as only having 1080 video for at least most situations. Indeed, if the M100 is still available when you watch this video, I'd find it hard to walk past with virtually the same feature set at a discounted price. Alternatively, if you can spend about £100 or $100 more than the M200, you could alternatively step up to the EOS M50, one of my favourite low price cameras, and this includes a built-in viewfinder, fully articulated side hinge screen and a microphone input, making it much more capable than the M200 for both photos and video. Another option to consider is the EOS 200D or Rebel SL2, which is essentially the DSLR version of the M50, again sporting a microphone input and side hinge screen, but switching the electronic viewfinder for an optical one, and often discounted to around the same price as the M200 is new. Now that's even harder to ignore. You may however notice all of these rival options have two things in common. First, they're all made by Canon, and secondly, they're all older models. At this price point there's actually very little competition other than a handful of entry-level DSLRs or older discounted models. In fact, when the older stock runs dry, the M200 will find itself as one of the cheapest cameras around with interchangeable lenses and an APS-C sensor, at which point it could be the only game in town for those on tighter budgets. Ultimately, you should check prices on the M100, M50 and 200D or SL2 to see if there's any bargains still available, and I've provided links in the description and pinned comment for you. If they've sold out or increased in price due to demand though, then I can happily recommend the M200 to budget buyers. It's fun, delivers good results and is an absolute doddle to use. Right, I hope you found that useful. You know what happens next. I'm going to ask you for a like and a follow if you found any of it useful, and if you really liked it or I saved you any cash, you could support my channel with a coffee donation or by grabbing yourself a super cool Camera Labs t-shirt or my in-camera book. Or best of all, how about reading my book while wearing the shirt and sipping a coffee? You know it makes sense, and there's links for everything below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.